So the Detroit situation also continues to deteriorate, much like the newspapers of America, which are hemorrhaging cash and failing miserably in a lot of cases. Although there's an exception, I think, for the weekly freebie papers. They seem to be doing all right. The daily newspapers are the ones that are having trouble. Detroit is similarly hemorrhaging people. People are leaving Detroit, and as a result of people leaving Detroit, the government there cannot collect as much in property taxes as they are used to collecting. Because of all the people leaving, the property prices have gone spiraling down in value in a lot of neighborhoods in Detroit. So even those who actually still are living in Detroit aren't living in houses that are worth a fraction, basically, of what they were 20 or 30 years ago. And so, that, of course, means fewer property taxes are coming in from those remaining properties that are on the tax rolls.
And half the people aren't paying, as we've read, too.
Right. They've just decided, screw it. I mean, it's just not worth paying for it at this point. They're not getting the services that they've been promised they're going to get. We've read articles within the last couple years about how all of the street lights, not all of them, but about 40 to 50% of them are completely non-functioning, either because they've been shot out or they've just burned out and the city's never been able to get around to fixing them. They don't have the budget for doing that.
Money.
The city owes money on its power bill, so it can't even pay, even if it could fix the street lights, they can't pay the bill to feed power to the street lights. The city in some places has shut down police offices to where you can only come in during regular business hours rather than what it was, which was 24/7. So if you had a crime to report at 3 in the morning, you could go in. Now you've got to wait until 9 or 8 or whenever it is they open up in the morning hours. So people are starting to arm up.
And that's Monday through Friday. No crime occurs on the weekends.
People are, I don't know if it was Monday through Friday or all 7, but either way, people are starting to arm up as a result of the police not responding to calls, which I'm sure has happened for a while there in Detroit. But even the Detroit police chief has admitted that he thinks that it's a good idea for people to arm themselves because he knows his officers can't get there in any reasonable amount of time or at all. So those are just a couple of examples of some of the ways that Detroit has sort of been falling apart at the seams. We talked recently about, of course, there's the whole bankruptcy thing as well. I didn't mention that. The city is bankrupt, and they're in this process, which is very lengthy. It involves lawsuits, unions suing the city over trying to get pensions or trying to hold on to pensions. Because, the question is, if the city's in dire financial straits, how the hell are they going to pay all these pension obligations that they have?
They're not.
Yeah, so there's a lot of wrangling in kind of the legal realm about this, and all the while, the people of Detroit are having a tough time as well. Because, as you might imagine, since the government there in Detroit is having a difficult time existing and continuing, they're there. I mean, there's plenty of government bureaucrats there in Detroit, but it's getting difficult. The financial squeeze has been put on this city and the people that work there. And so because the government is being squozen, they're, of course, in turn squeezing, squeezed. The government is being squeezed.
No, I like squozen.
Yes, I think squozen is.
So they, of course, are putting the squeeze to the people as well. And people in this town, they're having a tough time making ends meet. And if you're having a tough time making ends meet, maybe you won't be able to pay your water bill. According to Reuters, controversial water shutoffs in Detroit will resume today after a month-long moratorium to allow delinquent customers to catch up with past due bills, said city officials. The bankrupt city's water authority attracted unwanted international attention earlier this summer when it launched an aggressive effort to cut service to customers who were months behind or owed thousands of dollars. The campaign, intended to deal with a $90 million backlog in unpaid bills, prompted accusations that it was unfair to the poor. During the moratorium, Detroit's Water and Sewerage Department...
See, now you have a right to water coming to your home. Interesting, huh?
Was returned to city control after nearly a year of oversight under the state-appointed emergency financial manager. The city then implemented an additional payment plan that allowed customers to pay at least 10% of a delinquent bill and spread the remaining balance over 2 years. More than 25,000 customers are enrolled in at least one of their payment plans, up from 17,000 when the moratorium began, said the Water Department in a statement. Quote, "The goal of the shutoff moratorium was always to give as many city residents as possible a chance to get current on their water bill," said the mayor. A city water fair on Saturday was held to help people avoid shutoffs by enrolling in a payment plan, drew more than 1,300 people. Water Department spokesbureaucrat said to Reuters he did not have an estimate on how many water customers are at risk of a shutoff. And outside initiatives also have aided needy customers, including a website that allows anonymous donors to pay past due bills. Now, that's an interesting idea, rather than just sort of letting everybody slide on this one. There are, people that are coming in to help people out that are in need. Hey, people are going to they're going to have their water shut off.
It is interesting.
What do you know? The market responded. Now, unfortunately, they don't actually give us the name of the website they're talking about here, so we can't actually send you over there to help out. But I'm sure if you look around, you might be able to find it. Detroit water bills are due, and they're going to be shutting people off starting earlier today. One of the site's creators tweeted the campaign has currently raised more than $100,000 so far. And the department has shut off water to over 7,000 customers for non-payment in June and restored service to over 3,000 customers. They also found over 200 illegal water hookups. Well, guys, what do you think about this? I mean, you've got a situation where people are having a tough time paying their bills. Should they have their water shut off?
It's textbook. When governments have money problems, they always shut off the services that are the most important to people.
That's the idea of government having the services, is because so that essentially, these things where private companies can't actually make money, we'll turn it over to the government, or the private companies may make more money than they should, so we'll turn it over to the government. These ideas, that's what puts them in the hands of the government in the first place.
Yeah, during some of the federal shutdowns, they make a point of closing down the offices where they know people are going to come, like the World War II monuments, the parks, and so forth. They know people are going to come, and they can make a big show of their displeasure with what's happening with policy by shutting down these programs that are so popular. In Ferguson, on the first few nights when there was the looting going on, the police were not out there stopping the looters because it's dangerous, but later they were happy to march through the city in a show of force, throwing tear gas into people's backyards and so forth.
All right, so you guys didn't really answer my question. We'll come back with more here in moments. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. How do you handle this water situation in Detroit? It's a mess, and people, obviously don't want people to die of thirst. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. And we were, for those of you just tuning in, talking about people who aren't paying their utility bills, specifically in Detroit, where the department of the water department there, the Water Authority, as they're called, shut off the water.
What else would they be called?
Shut off the water to over 7,000 customers for non-payment in June. And they're not saying how many customers are going to be shut down now, but they are resuming the shutdowns. There had been a moratorium put on the shutdowns to give people a chance to get on payment plans. There are many delinquent customers with past due bills, some of them in the thousands of dollars, apparently. And
wow.
And so my question earlier was, and we actually was interesting because we had a guy call in at the end of the last hour he's a listener. He's called before, actually. He's told us that he works for the government, and he revealed to us tonight that he is in the shut-off department of the water department, basically, the water authority, if you will, that he is a liberty-minded person working in that department, and it is his job to process through these shutoffs and to order guys to go out physically to people's homes and shut off their water and or their power, because apparently the government runs the power in St. George, which is weird, but that's how it is. So my question for you guys, and I felt like you kind of went on a tangent and really didn't address the question, was what's the best way to handle this? I mean, this is a pretty serious issue where people aren't getting water. That could result in somebody dying of thirst. In theory, I mean, obviously if they've got family or friends, they can probably get some help and at least have some drinking water on hand, even if they're not showering regularly. So I don't know if it's going to lead to too many deaths, but it certainly appears a very serious situation when somebody's about to have their water cut off. Now, our last caller did point out that usually when you shut them off, they cough up the money, and that's just what it takes to get their attention and to get the bill paid. So, but that said, there's still, a portion of people who aren't able to really kind of help themselves. They've run onto hard times, and they are legitimately in need of some help. So, what's the best way to handle this?
Well, Maslow's hierarchy of needs puts water really high, right? Like there it is. It's you can survive 3 minutes
3 days without water?
Oxygen, yeah. 3 days without water, maybe 3 weeks without food.
Okay.
I call it number 2. I mean, you got to have water. How do you communicate to people? And I think this really is what, a bill is communication. How do you communicate to people the importance of water to them and their household? And the way you have to do that is to cut off their water.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the only option. Because if you don't communicate to them that I will cut off your water, what you have communicated to them is that water's a right, that I have to provide water to you, that I will provide water to you.
No matter what.
No matter what you do. You can choose not to, pay the bill. Like, it costs money to get water from the reservoir to your house. If you don't pay that, you are a bum. And some people I have needed in my life a little nudge to remind, hey, don't be a bum.
Mm-hmm.
Be something other than that. So what that is that's communication. And what a company that, an organization, whatever they might be, that provides water to people needs to communicate is that, look, if you want water, you need to pay the water bill. I don't agree with just sort of this service charge that we might provide you water. We have, we're offering you the option of water, so you need to pay $20 a month just because we're offering you that option. I mean, people that are using your water need to pay for your water, whatever your organizational status is. An organization that wants to be viewed well by people in this world that do not understand how to communicate priorities to other people, because the world's full of bedwetting, bleeding heart types that are like, but water's right. You managed to avoid abortion up to this point. You're born. That's all it takes to be obligated to give you water.
Johnny Ray,
that's a bunch of crap. So therefore, to communicate to those people that I'm a good organization, you might partner with organizations that will help people pay their water bill that legitimately need it. However, I would claim that there is nearly nobody on the planet that the number of people that don't have water, that need water, and can't afford water, considering that water is the number 2 priority behind oxygen, and so far oxygen is largely free, those people really don't exist. That we're still talking about a misallocation of resources no matter who we're dealing with. And, water's there at the top of the list. It should come before even rent and the house payment.
Johnny Ray, why Mark's saying water's not a right? Is it true? And if so, if it's not a right, why not?
Well, I don't think water is a right, but that's because I don't really believe in rights. I think you kind of get what you can get in this world. And luckily, the human race is advanced far enough along to recognize that doing good for others is usually good for you. Most people seem to kind of work with the golden rule, and that redounds to the benefit of everyone. In this particular case, I think the best thing that can happen for Detroit is for the water authority to be closed, and for the water system to be a free for all.
What's that mean?
Yeah, please describe that.
It means that there would be no oversight or regulation of the water infrastructure in the city of Detroit.
So what are you saying? Are you saying that the water cleaning facilities that, obviously there's some cleaning that goes on, they in some cases will add things like fluoride and things like that to water. Are you saying those facilities should just be abandoned by the city and that just random people should be able to go in and take it over? Are you saying it should be homesteaded, or would it count if some bums went in there and set up camp? Would they then own the water facility? What exactly are you proposing?
The facilities.
Because there's plenty of homeless people in Detroit that would love to have a nice warm water processing plant to sleep in.
Sure. The provision of water is so important to people that they're going to have it. The people, the market will come because there's an opportunity for profit there.
There's a huge demand.
There's a huge demand, and
no doubt. But okay, is it first come first serve? Is it like if Water Incorporated shows up at the site the moment the government guys lock the door? Do they then get to control? How do you transfer that?
Because the people are going to want clean water. Those people with expertise are going to be able to. They're going to be recognized for their expertise, and
recognized
they will
by
be
whom?
By the consumer.
But that doesn't answer the
consumer
question.
and the market. I can't get into every.
Well, the classic way, and I'm not saying it's the best way, but the classic way, the idea of getting something out of a government agency's hands is that they will essentially give it to the highest bidder, or they'll somehow administratively select which company gets to administer this now privatized government program. But you're saying just let it go and
walk away
let
from
just
it.
anybody
Right.
take
A bankrupt
it over.
organization should walk away from an asset that they can then use to pay government employees. I'm not saying that the homesteading idea isn't Rothbardian, like at its core, and doesn't have some redeeming value to it. I think it's difficult for people to imagine what would happen if people just walked away from a centralized water system, how that would somehow work. I think that the best solution is that the City Council of Detroit nixes all laws that say that there can't be competition in the area of water distribution, including people being able to drill their own wells in their own yards. And many cities don't allow this.
That's a good point, yeah.
And
they prohibit that.
then at that point, they auction off the water distribution system to the highest bidder, and then people that they're going to do better at it than the city is, and then people can bring up competition.
All right, so we were reading earlier about Detroit. They're going to be shutting off people's water, and we talked actually with somebody who works in a government water department, actually in the shut-off division. I love it when people call in and really bring the discussion to a level that we weren't able to reach. So that was awesome having that guy call in and kind of tell the experience of what it's like to be involved in this. In his case, it's not Detroit, where people are much more anonymous. I mean, as he pointed out, he's in St. George, Utah, or somewhere around there. 25,000 was the population. He said around 200 to 300 people there are in arrears. They're in any month generally facing having their water being shut off. Now, 1% of Detroit's population is probably, it's going to be a lot larger of a number. It's probably not as a personal encounter when somebody is trying to dispute their water being turned off. But nonetheless, it was interesting to hear what it's like, because he is somebody who doesn't, they don't want to shut people off, is what he says. But the fact is, when you shut somebody off, all of a sudden they find the money they didn't have before, or they make the time to actually come in and pay the bill. Whereas, maybe they were just dragging their feet previously and they needed a little kick in the butt. Well, apparently shutting off the water can do that. But nonetheless, the market has responded. There was a paragraph in the article that we were reading about the Detroit government turning off people's water. And that, by the way, I had it pulled up. I don't have it right now. Oh, that was yahoo.com. That was where that news came from. But there was a paragraph in there about some sort of a private fundraiser that was going on, some sort of organization that was actually helping raise money to pay people's water bills in Detroit. And I thought that was an interesting solution. So I went around, I wanted to find out where that was, because the news article didn't actually link to it. And I have to say the URL isn't particularly friendly, but I will post it on our Facebook, Google+, and Twitter for anybody that wants to help out some folks in Detroit. Of course, my first question was, well, how do I know this is the site they were talking about in the news story? The site here is called the Detroit Water Project. They are at detroit-water-project.com. herokuapp.com.
Oh, my.
Like I said, I'll link it on our Facebook.
It's something easy that you can just give right over the radio.
Yeah, I'll link it on our Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. But they're saying they're matching people in Detroit to 7,000 plus donors for direct water bill help. Over 300,000 Detroit residents face water shutoffs due to past due water bills exacerbated by Detroit's ongoing economic woes. Now, that's the claim on this website. I don't know if that's true. If it is true, that's crazy because what are there, 600, 700,000 people living in Detroit? Could it really be true that nearly half of the city's population is facing shutoff?
That's insane.
If that's true, that's pretty crazy. Now, my big question was, all right, well, why do I want to give money to this organization? I don't even know who they are. This could just be anybody who threw up some free website saying,
Indeed.
hey, we're raising money for Detroit. What they're saying here in their frequently asked questions, however, is that they do not accept donations at the Detroit Water Project. They apparently... they claim they're different from other funding sources and organizations in that we match donors to people in need, then direct donors to pay Detroit directly. This ensures that donors know exactly where their money is going. Transparency is paramount. So not only are you not giving money to this, questionable group that threw a web page up, but you're also not being asked to give money directly to the person who owes the money on the bill.
Well,
you're getting a bill number, presumably from the actual customer, then you are contacting you're getting in touch with the Detroit Water Company and paying that.
I think that's awesome, but I also think, if you're talking about half the people in Detroit want help with their water bill, color me a somewhat skeptical. Also, the thing is that I think water is very important, and I think that it's the rare individual that can't come up with the money to pay their water bill. I think it should be among the first things you do in a given month.
No kidding.
I have been behind on my mortgage payments in the past. That has happened to me, but water seems it's a smaller bill. It's one of those things you can get out of the way, and I kind of feel like just because. Money's fungible. If I pay your water bill, that gives you $30 or $40 a month to spend on whatever it is that you want to spend
like
on.
Cigarettes,
alcohol, those kind of things.
Crack.
Now, it's not that I don't have. It's not that I don't think that people need those, that need entertainment of some sort.
Prescription pills.
But I'm of the I don't like it, right? Like I wouldn't put my money towards that. If we're talking about somebody who genuinely needs water, I would give to that, but I'm also skeptical of those people.
That's a good point. They're going to have a story to tell. Whether the story is true or not is another question. Shauna's in Utah and listening to KZNU. Hey, Shauna, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi. I was just calling, and I couldn't agree more with Mark about how to deal with that situation. I guess it would be called the privatization of the water company instead of letting the city run it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.